And then we'll view everybody's on Thursday in class. So everybody's to show up to class on Thursday. And there is a take-home on Thursday we'll go over before you leave on Panoramic. So if you want to go to week 8 real quick on Eagle. On Thursday, second session, we're going to send your manipulation photos to a location I'll have you send on that day. There is an email in there right now. I'm going to change it by Thursday, so don't pay attention to that email that's in there, because there'll be a unique one for Thursday. We're going to discuss landscape and panoramic tonight. Your take-home this week's on panoramic, which is basically taking multiple pictures and stitching them together using Pixlr, and you're going to stitch those together and put them into one picture for a wide panoramic photo. And so we're going to talk about that tonight. And so I'm going to go ahead and start up the discussion on panoramic and landscape. We're going to go over a couple of these tips here and discussion about what landscape and panoramic is, and then we got a couple websites we're going to look at some panoramic examples. So in panoramic, one of the first things, or landscape photography, one of the first things it's used for is depth of field, maximizing your depth of field. When you're taking a scene like this, of a wide scene, you're taking advantage of depth of field in the background. And you got to be a little bit more creative with landscape photography. The normal approach when you take a landscape photo like this is to get as much of the scene as possible in the picture. The simplest way to do this is to have a small aperture or a large number, large f-stop. As the smaller your aperture, the greater the depth of field is. And remember, when you have a greater depth of field, what that is, it means the subject's in focus, and then you've also got areas behind the subject that are out of focus when you have depth of field. Do keep in mind smaller apertures mean less lighting hitting your image sensor at any time, so it may mean you need to compensate by increasing your ISO. If you set your cameras to aperture setting, the A setting, the aperture mode, it'll automatically set your ISO for you. If you don't have an aperture setting on your camera, you can manually set the aperture setting f-stops, and you want the f-stops to be a larger number, meaning a smaller opening. So there's times, it says here, when you can get some great results with a very shallow depth of field, like this one here. Says here, this one has a very shallow depth of field. It's focusing mainly on this area right here that you can see with the big rock area formation. Let me turn off the light so we can see that a little bit better. Okay, so the shallow depth of field here, there's not a lot of depth here, but it brings good results because you've got the rock formation actually in front of the mountains serves as a depth to the picture. Anytime you put an object in front of another object, that gives it depth. Okay, so that's a trick here when you're doing landscape. It could be a simple branch going over the backdrop to give you that depth. So when you're doing landscape, this week you will begin using your tripod. If you don't have one, it'd be a good idea to get one. You can survive without one, though. I have had students survive without getting a tripod. You just have to hold your hands very steady. But basically, the reason you want a tripod for this week is because you're going to have a longer shutter speed because of the smaller aperture. You'll need to ensure that your camera is completely still, because remember that aperture is going to be wide open. It's going to be open wider, meaning more light's going to be let in, meaning that camera's got to be very still during exposure. So in fact, even if you have to be able to, you're able to shoot a faster shutter speed, practice using a tripod can be beneficial. And tripods you can get under $20. You can generally get a tripod for under $20. Also consider a cable or wireless shutter. You don't need to worry about that. Those are for high-end cameras, but tripods definitely. Focal point. Anytime you're ready to take any photo, specifically with landscape, you need some sort of a focal point, and landscapes are no different. In fact, landscape photographs without them end up looking empty, and the viewer's eye wanders. And one of the things you want to do with landscape is capture their attention where their eyes have somewhere to rest. Focal points can take many forms in landscape. It could range from a building, a structure, a tree, a rock formation like we looked at earlier, a silhouette. An example, I saw one a while back of a couple that just got married on a beach, and it was a silhouette of the couple. You couldn't really see their faces, just a silhouette with a moon, or the moon was actually rising in the background. And it was beautiful. It was just a silhouette of the couple, and they were the focal point. A wide shot of the beach and the sun, the moon as it was rising. And so basically anything that's in front of the focal point or the focal point needs to be focused on. Think not only what the focal point is, but where it is, like the couple on the beach. They are directly right in front of the rising moon, and you can see the silhouette in front of the moon. Rule of thirds is also useful too. So in this picture right here, let's blow it up a little bit. Somebody tell me, real quick, on this picture here, if I can blow it up here. What's the focal point that you see in this picture? What do you notice first? What does your eye focus on first on this picture? Anybody? Mountains. Anybody eye focus on the yellow dandelions first? Anybody? Okay. So everyone's focus is on the mountains. What do the dandelions do to the mountains? What do they give to the mountains? We've just talked about it. They give depth to the mountains, right? Because the dandelions are in front of the mountains. They're not really the focal point of the photo, but they definitely give it a lot of depth, okay? Just by putting those dandelions in front of the mountains brings out those mountains. Now, you could actually argue that the dandelions are the focal point. In fact, if this was blown up larger, in fact, these could be the focal point in the middle of the picture, okay? But either way, these are generally going to be, these flowers are generally going to be give you that third dimension, that focal point of the mountains, and brings them out. So foregrounds is what we're seeing here. Foregrounds definitely are beneficial, as in the flowers here. And this is one thing you probably need to begin thinking of this week, is what sets your image apart from others is what foreground objects you place in front of your landscape. So think carefully about it before you begin taking the shot. When you do this though, and you give those viewing the shot away into the images that give depth like the one above, it just adds more dimension to it. And that could be like you're taking a picture of the Rock River, and in front of the Rock River is a branch going down in front of your shot. Well, normally you would think that's not a good picture. It obstructs the view of the Rock River. No, it gives depth to the Rock River, because that branch is actually being the foreground part of the photo and giving you depth now to that image that it otherwise wouldn't have. Okay? Consider the sky as well in landscape. Another element to consider is the sky. Most landscapes either have a dominant foreground or sky. What that means is the third rule. The 1/3 rule, meaning 1/3 sky or 1/3 ground is going to be your line, your sky basically. So your sky can either be this here, or it could be this here, which would be the ground part. So it could be actual clouds, or it could actually be actual text. But it's going to be the 1/3 on top or the bottom of your photo for the most part. If you do not have that, it can be kind of boring if you don't have some type of line there. If you have a bland, boring sky, don't let it dominate your shot. Place a horizon in the upper third, like it's on the board there. So if you have a normal sky, you want to make the foreground interesting, like those yellow flowers, right? Those make it interesting. Bring it out. However, if the sky is full of drama, cloud formation, things like that, you can actually make that a prominent portion of the photo and bring that horizon down a little bit lower. It's okay to bring that horizon down a tad bit lower maybe if you had to, if this was very dominant clouds and formations in the sky, to make it really come out and drawn out. You can also, as you've done this week, and this is why one of the reasons I put this lab after the enhancement lab of your photos, is you can do post-production with filters. That Pixlr website has a Pixlr and then Pixlr Mater. The Pixlr Mater has a whole bunch of cool filters in it. I had a student last semester whose daughter went to homecoming, and she used that Pixlr Mater to add some filters to her graduation photos. She actually took her own graduation photos and then used the filter in Pixelmator to apply. So you can use post-production to enhance the sky, like one of the labs I believe you guys did, one of the in-class ones was making the sky gloomy, polarizing, adding contrast, using your filters, like we've done last week using Pixelmator or Pixlr. Now here's a cool example. This actually here, this photo here, post-production, okay? Meaning it brought in after the shot was taken and purposely making the skies darker and more gloomier, all right? It could have been a sunshiny day and making it darker like this. And you can use your, when we did the lab on Thursday of last week, does anybody remember what we used for the avatar to make the skin different color? Remember what effect that was in Pixlr?
Was chalk effect?
Nope.
Use the chalk brush?
No, where you actually turn the skin blue. Starts with a H and a S.
Hue and saturation.
Hue and saturation, right. The hue saturation can change colors of whatever area you select to that effect that you want, whether it be dark and gloomy, whether it be a different color altogether. This picture also shows, if you look on the overhead, lines, okay? A road definitely shows lines easily. What's another photo that you can think of around here in Rockford, where we have a lot of these, that have good lines? Another picture you could take, we have them all over Rockford, down by Rock River, you got them even around here, around Rock Valley, got some of these. Railroad tracks. Railroad tracks are everywhere in Rockford. Loves Park, McChesney, you can stop anywhere, get out of your car, and find railroad tracks pretty much, just about anywhere here in this area. And if you go like to the Rock River, where they have the railroad tracks going right across, right next to the river. It's a great place to take photos. But you want lines in there that basically is this question here you ask yourself: how am I leading the eye of the viewer in this shot? Like this one right here. The viewers actually think of what's at the end of this road right here. What's beyond what I see? And that's basically what you want for landscape. What is beyond what you see? So for instance, if you're taking a landscape of a Rock River, we'll use that as an example, and on this side of your picture you have a bridge that's going somewhere. You don't want to take the end of the bridge. You want to maybe make it to where it ends around 3/4 of the bridge, to where the viewer's thinking, how long does that bridge go? How long is that bridge? And so you want to give a feeling of completion, that they need to complete it. There are a number of ways to do this. Foregrounds is one, like we've already mentioned. Placing something in front of, like in the flowers instance, placing these in front of the mountains, placing this rock in front of that nice long shot here. So we already looked at the foreground as being one of them. The other way to do this is lines. Adding any type of lines to the photo, like in this one here, the lines of the road, the stripes in the road, give you a focal point for the users to see more in that picture than what's actually there. Next is movement. This is probably the most difficult part of landscape, because when you think of landscape, you think of static skyscape that we'll look at in just a second, like the skyscape of Chicago, the cityscape of New York, the cityscape of Chicago. The buildings that are tall, we've all seen the landscape photos of those, right? The panoramic, wide photos. So to capture movement in landscape, again, takes a little creativity, but you can do it. Like, for example, wind in trees, waves on a beach, water flowing over a waterfall, birds flying overhead, moving clouds. When you capture this movement, it adds a lot to the photo. And so a lot of times when we take photo, we think, well, a bird flew across or the wind was blowing. That made it worse. No, it actually makes it better. It gives movement to the photo. So capturing a photo, movement generally means longer shutter speed. Of course, this means hitting the light hitting your sensor, which will mean you need to either go for a smaller aperture, which we already talked about, setting a larger f-stop, smaller aperture. Use some sort of filter, even shoot. This is what I recommend. You guys don't need a filter. Shoot at the start or end of day for this landscape take home that we'll be doing Thursday. The best time to take landscape end is the beginning of the day, when the sun just comes out, or when the sun's setting. It's the best lighting, the best colors, movement even, is during those hours, okay? So here's an example here of a photo taken, and look at the luminous clouds, which takes up over about half of the photo, the top half of the photo, which is fine. We talked about how much keep the rule of 1/3, 1/3, either 1/3 sky, 1/3 ground being your horizontal line. But in this case, since we have really good movement of clouds, it's okay to go beyond that third mark. Is everything else below here pretty much is just filler? There's not really much activity going on there. The user is going to view what's there at the top because it's luminous, it's powerful, it's moving. Also work with weather. We always think the best time to take photos when it's nice outside. Not the case. The best time to take a photo when it's dramatic weather outside, or weather that's different, or blowing, or cold, or snow, or ice. A scene can dramatically change upon the weather at any given moment. We know that in Rockford. As a result, choosing the right time to shoot is important. And as I said already, many beginning photographers see a sunny day and think it's the best time. However, an overcast sky that's threatening to rain might present a much better image for mood and ominous overtones. So look for storms, winds, mist, dramatic clouds, sun shining through the dark sky, rainbow, sunset, sunrises, etc. The sun coming up in the morning with the dew on the grass, perfect time. Early morning, as soon as the sun hits. It could be dry as a bone for a week. You wake up early in the morning when the sun just is rising and you'll see it glistening on the grass right outside your house. As soon as you wake up, okay? Or you have to wake up earlier to see it, okay? But you walk outside, 6 in the morning, you're going to see things differently in 6 in the morning than at noon. The same scene will look different in 6 hours because the sun's risen, dried up all the moisture of the dew, looks pretty plain Jane. But that time in the morning when the sun's first rising and that dew's on the grass, everything is, it's shinier, brighter, that's not a word, brighter, shinier, throughout. Everything that you see basically filters it. Also, golden hours I already talked about. I chatted with one photographer recently who told me that he never shoots during the day. He only shoots at times that are around dawn and dusk because that's when the light's best, and he finds landscapes come alive. And I have found that to be true. Landscapes come alive at nighttime in the golden hours. The golden hours are great for landscape for a number of reasons. None of these, which is golden light, which often presents itself during those times. The other reason is it says I love the times is the angle of light and how it impacts a scene, creating patterns, dimensions, and textures. So when the sun's going down, it hits the trees differently, the leaves differently, the grass differently, the road differently, the mountains different. Everything's hit differently with that sun coming down. Have you ever drove down a road and you're driving home or whatever, and you see sun piercing through a cloud, maybe, and you're just like, whoa, that's pretty awesome. And maybe it's a pretty normal day besides that, but right at the sunset, it really captures everything in a different light. Horizons, I've already talked a little bit about it, but one tip that's all but good before you take a landscape shot, also consider the horizons on two fronts. Is it straight? While you can always straighten things up in post-production, like using Pixlr, you can straighten it up. It's easier to get it right the first time. Where is it compositionally with everything else? Using your rule of thirds here, a compositionally natural spot for horizon is 1/3 on the top or bottom. Then in the middle, you don't want it in the middle. Of course, rules are meant to be broken, like this one right here. The line's actually right in the middle, okay, in this shot. And this is actually shot ground level, taking your camera ground level on the ground on a road in between the double yellow lines and getting this shot. So you've got the lines, you've got the perspective, you've got the depth, all here, and even breaking the rule of having the line the upper third or the lower third. Here you'll notice the line's right in the middle, which works fine for this shot. There's always exceptions to the rule. Change of point of view, like this one right here. Definitely a change of point of view, right? You drive up to a scenic lookout, you get out of the car, you grab your camera, you turn it on, you walk up to the barrier that everybody else walks up to, raise your camera to your eye, you rotate it to left or right, zoom in a little, take your shot before getting back in the car and going to the next scene. We've all done it, right? We've went to these normal lookouts that everybody goes to. There's some great ones around Rockford and the region, like driving to Galena. There's a lot of lookouts Galena, Illinois, you can get out and take photos of. However, the process doesn't generally lead to a wow shot. It's what everybody else has taken. So I want you to think differently on landscape. Take a little time with your shot, particularly in finding a more interesting point of view. It might start by a different spot that you shot at before and everybody else does. It might be going down a path that nobody else goes down, or very few people, maybe just horses or deer or whatever might go down in a pasture of a farm or something. Look for new angles. It could mean getting down on the ground like the shot up above here did, getting right on the ground level to get this shot. It might mean getting on a ladder. It might mean standing up on the top of your car, whatever, to get that different shot. Explore the environment, experiment with different viewpoints, and you can find something truly unique. So that's the first one. So now let's talk about take it to the next level from landscape to panoramic, and then we're going to look at some panoramic examples after this discussion. So why create a panorama photo? Every camera today, including the new iPhone, has a panoramic setting. Do not use that for this assignment, okay? Force yourself to do it the old-fashioned way, which you'll learn in just a second, which is taking multiple shots in succession, side by side, for that panoramic to come to life. I'm going to draw this on the board, and then we're going to talk about it on the overhead in just a second here. But basically, you've got your tripod here. You've got your camera on your tripod, okay? You've got your landscape that you're taking a photo of, which we'll say is circumference something like this, all right? Your tripod's in the middle of the shot, and we could maybe say there's a bridge here, the Rock River, and the bank, some trees, some buildings, okay? So what you're going to do is, when you take a panoramic shot, you got your tripod set, you know what you're going to take a picture of, you've got your focal point, in this case a focal point